Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to it. It is hump day, middle of the week. We could see Firearms Friday from here. It is Wednesday, but today is a special day. Today we're going to be getting into it and talking with two guests at the same time. In fact, it is the debate for House District 7. We're going to be joined here in just a hot second by Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge, who are both vying for the seat down there on the Kenai Peninsula. And we're going to have some discussions and topics with them. We're going to go through all that here in just a second. The details, the rules, and how we're going to be doing this to be fair and equitable and cover all the topics that I think are important here for folks who are living down in the peninsula and in the whole state of Alaska as well. So that's coming up here in just a second. We're going to get into the details of that. First things first, I want to say thank you to today's sponsor of the program for the whole situation, and that is our friends over there at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com when it comes to communication needs across the state of Alaska. Doesn't matter where you are, Kodiak to Kaparik, they can find you a connection to whatever kind of communication you need, whether it's a phone call or an email or a text message, or you just want to surf the internet in somewhere in the White Mountains. You could do it. You could do it. They've got the devices and the connectivity to make it happen for you. It is Satellite West. You can find them again at satellitewest.com. Special thank you to them for sponsoring the program for today, all 2 hours of the program this morning as we get ready to go along. All right, so we are going to get into it here in just a second. I'm going to bring on the program both of our guests who are sitting in the green room, both Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham, now sitting in the green room, and we're going to go over this. This is, I'm not styling myself some kind of great moderator or anything else. I'm going to do the Lincoln Douglas style of... I basically have laid out for myself and for the guests just a timeline of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be starting with opening statements from each guest, and then we're going to go through a series of issues that I believe are important to people, including priorities and the caucusing and the PFD and the size and scope of government and proposed cuts and revenues, the con. We're going to touch on the Charter of Changes, and we're actually, in hour 2, going to be taking some questions from the audience for the guests. And we'll give both of them a chance to answer. So if you're asking a question, make sure it's a question that, can be answered by both guests. I have a hard and fast rule around here. We will treat guests with respect on questioning or anything else. We won't have time for a whole lot of questions, but we will try to get to as many as we can. But if you are rude or abusive in any way, bye-bye, you'll be gone, right? So we're going to keep all that ready to go, and we're going to get it to, and then we're going to give them a chance for for closing statements and everything else. So we're going to test drive this as we go through. Now, let me go ahead and bring both guests into the broadcast here this morning, since they're both sitting there. I see Ron is ready. Justin is, I saw him a second ago, but he is, there we are. We're both in there. Okay. So everybody's ready. We're going to add everybody up into the stream here, and we're going to start fresh this morning and get things ready to go. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for, whoops, we lost Justin all of a sudden. He's just disappeared. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming on board. I appreciate you guys being part of it today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. So here's how it's going to work. I've posted the a list of the kind of the questions and the topics that we're going to cover, and for the most part, I'm giving each of you 3 minutes to respond. You will see on your screen a timer, so you could see the timer and you'll let it know. But what it'll give you is it will give you a 10-second warning that will sound a lot like this when you get the 10-second warning. And that means you have 10 seconds to finish up your thought before I kind of shut everything down for you. Okay. So you'll have both the visual and the audio aid to get the heads up on that. And we will continue on here and we'll get things started. So I guess that's it. That's all the rules. We're going to try and just make this as simple and easy and congenial as possible. And we're going to get things ready to rock and roll. I kind of flipped a coin here in the background to get things started. And we're going to start off this morning with Justin Ruffridge, the challenger for the seat. Ron Gillham is the incumbent. And we're going to start off with Justin, and we're just going to kind of give you, opening statements. And it could be who you are, what you offer, or it could be something along the lines of, here's my vision, here's what I want to do. So we're going to start off there. Justin, you've got the floor, and we're going to give you 3 minutes to kick things off here. So let's get started. Let's get started with you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Michael, for this opportunity to be on your show today. I'm not sure how many of your listeners have been following my Facebook account, but debating and having this head-to-head conversation has been something I've been asking for months. So I am really excited about this opportunity today, and thank you for being the moderator and the host of this, and thank you for your listeners to tuning in. I believe that this is the job. This is what you are required to do as a representative, is be able to take ideas, to be able to condense those ideas down into recognizable thoughts, to be able to communicate those well to each other, as well as communicate those to the general public. And I believe that debate is the best way to show that. So that's one of the reasons I've been asking for this to happen for quite some time. I'd also like to thank my opponent for being on here today and for organizing, this debate with Mr. Dukes. And I think it shows a lot of intent to do things right, and I appreciate that very much. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Justin Ruffridge. I grew up on the Kenai area here. I moved up to Alaska with my parents when I was 9 years old. Both of my parents were Christian school teachers and taught here locally at a small Christian school called Wings Christian Academy. That is the school that I graduated from with the graduating class of, I believe it was 3 people. So large graduating class, since it was only a school of 36 kids, K through 12. After graduation, I went away to school, ended up at Washington State University for 6 years. Ended up graduating from there with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree in 2008. Moved back to the Kenai Peninsula to begin working, and got a job at Soldotna Professional Pharmacy with the owner and founder of that pharmacy, Mr. Hodel. It was a great job. Really learned a lot, and Mr. Hodel was a great mentor. And ended up, Mr. Hodel wanted to sell that pharmacy. He sold it to an outside group of individuals from Washington. And long story short, that as you kind of can imagine, with folks in Alaska, they don't like outside ownership of things. And so in 2018, I was able to buy into the business and now co-own that with a business partner of mine. And I have I have the opportunity of owning that store and 2 others in Alaska. I have a wife of 18 years and 2 kids, and excited to be here today and talk with you folks.
All right. That is Justin Ruffridge, candidate for House District 7. We move over to Ron Gillham, who is currently the incumbent. Ron, you got give us your opening statements here.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So I've been in Alaska for roughly 39 years, and I've got a wife, 2 kids, 4 grandkids, and I was a business owner for over 30 years here on the peninsula with a charter business. Very successful. Just kind of got tired of the politics of it and decided to give it up, and then got into politics. But my wife and I have been married as of next month 42 years, which I'm proud of that. My whole time in Alaska has been in Soldotna. I love this town. I love the people in it. It's had my son one time ask me, "Is there anybody you don't know?" I said, "Not yet." So it's a great place to raise a family. I spent 16 years working for VICO. Then I moved over and went to work for ASRC, spent 16 years there. Of course, the last 2 years I've been working for the people of Alaska down in Juneau. Alaska is just a great state. And, I want to do what I can to preserve and give my grandkids the opportunity that I had. And the way we're going, it's not going to happen. So, as a representative, I have to represent everybody. We have a very diverse economy on the peninsula with commercial fishing, sport fishing, and the personal use. And that is a very difficult thing to try to represent, because each group is very firm on their stance. But, it's something that we have to do. And so I kind of get beat up a lot from both sides. But, like I said, I have to represent both sides. And I've enjoyed being a representative. It's not something that I had ever planned on doing, but the people that I work with are some of the great people in the state. And, I'm just looking forward to going back to Juneau and representing them for another 2 years. So don't think I'll need the full 3 minutes, but
all right. Well, then we'll continue,
Michael.
All right. Well, we'll continue on here then, and we'll start off again this time with Ron Gillham as we flop back and forth. Ron, as you go back to Juneau, and this will be the same question for Justin, but as you go down to Juneau and you face off in this session this next year, what are your priorities as you look at the state of the state, what we're doing with the budgets, the crises we're facing both statewide and nationally that have ramifications? What are going to be the priorities as a legislator that you are going to be tackling in this upcoming session and in the rest of the term? What are going to be the priorities, as few or as many as you feel like you need to put out there? We'd love to hear what exactly it is that you're going to be focusing on.
So when I went to Juneau, it was basically over the dividend. My grandkids were getting 50% taxed on their dividend. But once I got there, I got onto the education committee and the resources committee. Well, Alaska's a resource state. And so my priorities going back is going to get the state opened up for extracting our resources. We did a lot with Oil Search and Repsol to help them open up the Pica project. There's not a lot we can do with the Willow project because that's on federal land, but Pica is all on state land. So we've done a lot to, writing letters, phone calls and stuff just to keep them moving forward. And they did decide to keep going and open up their project. In education, I believe that parents know more of what their kids need than what the state, than the state. So I think the money should follow the child. And that is going to be a very important thing to me, is to try to help the parents get the funding to either homeschool or send their kids to private school, because not everybody can afford to send their kids to private school. And we need a public education, but we need an education system that will help our kids and not help NEA, not help a system. So one of my priorities, I guess a major priority, is getting our education system fixed. I'm a big advocate for trade schools. And, like I said, we are a resource state. And I don't think you need a college degree to drive a truck or, run a crane. And I think kids should go to trade schools and they can come out of high school and be making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year without having any kind of debt to college. So, that's one of my major things, is getting the money to follow the child, fix our education system, and stop this radical push to indoctrinate our kids.
All right, Ron Gillham, our guest here, along with Justin Ruffridge. We're in the middle of a question right now. Justin, I'm going to ask you to bear with me. We are up against a commercial break. I'm a bit of a slave to the clock, so we'll re-ask the question on the other side, and we will continue in just a moment with more. Our debate between candidates for District 6, Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham. We will continue in just a moment. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are in the break right now here. Both Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham still with us in the guest. And quite surprisingly, this is the one part that I didn't think about. What are we going to talk about during the commercial breaks outside of the debate? So first and foremost, let me leave both candidates in the lurch for just a second here. We're going to have them hang out with us here as we go through this. I do want to remind listeners in the chat room that you would do me a huge favor by sharing this show this morning. We actually only have 45, 50 people watching between Facebook and YouTube. Usually we're a little bit larger this morning. So I don't know. I saw several people comment that they got no notification from Facebook this morning, which again is why I encourage you, if you're a Facebook watcher, to still go over to YouTube, to my YouTube channel, and make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell over there. Because even if it just means that you want to come back to YouTube or to Facebook to watch it, you at least are sure you're going to get notifications, right? I mean, that's the whole point. And you could follow us on Twitch if you want to create a Twitch account as well. And then you'll have 3 notifications to make sure that you're covered this morning. So whatever you want to do, that's what I'd love to do. I've gone ahead and I put the link in the chat room to the YouTube channel. You just go over there, you hit the subscribe button, and you ring the bell to make sure that you get notifications. And you can just say every time we go live, you want to get a notification, and that's fine. But that way, I notice again several people who said they had no Facebook notifications. In fact, what did Brian said? No notifications this morning. I demand an investigation. Show trials. This is a threat to our democracy. Yes, I'm sure it is. But see, if you get a YouTube, if you go to your YouTube and subscribe to the channel there, you'll get a notification from somewhere at least, and make sure that you do that. You do that as well. All right. So we're about 3 minutes. We might do in the next commercial break. We'll probably do like a bonus round segment for like maybe a 2-minute answer for something that I haven't put on the list because we have about a 5.5, 6 minute break there. So we'll get a chance to ask a quick question and get maybe a 2-minute response from each candidate. that unfortunately the people on the radio won't hear, but that's okay. We'll be available on the podcast later on in the morning. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow on the program, we're going to have David Nelson from Anchorage, running for State House in Anchorage, as well as Senator Mia Costello coming on board to talk about her run and candidacy for office. Next week, Reuben McNeil, Delana Johnson, Forrest Wolf, Liz Vasquez, Kevin McKinley, and more. So again, and I mean, we are 3 weeks away, folks, 3 weeks away from all this madness being over, and we can get back to our normally scheduled live. Although I did say I had no idea what I would be talking about after the elections, because this has given us a good excuse to get a chance and get a and to talk with our elected representatives, or those who would be our elected representatives. And so that has actually given me a good idea to talk about here in the next commercial break already. So we'll remember that. Just lock that in, and we'll come back to that here in a second. Also, don't forget, this weekend, if you're in the Fairbanks area or the surrounding environs, it is going to be the Go Winter Expo at the Carlson Center. And I will be up in Fairbanks this weekend, being part of that. We've got the Interior Alaska Gun Show off to the side, benefiting Alaskans for wildlife conservation. And it's going to be a fun time. So if you got nothing else going on this weekend and you're up in the interior or up in near that area, make sure that you putter on over to Fairbanks and join us at the Carlson Center. It'll be 10 to 6 on Saturday, 11 to 5 on Sunday, and then I will be back here bright and early Monday morning for the show at 6 a.m. on Monday. So it's going to be a busy weekend. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun stuff. So make sure you come on over and join us. All right. Again, like and share, follow, do all the stuff that you would like to do. And don't forget that coming up in hour 2, we will be taking some phone calls for the guests and the candidates. See, even I have to deal with the ding, because the ding reminds me we're about to jump back into it on the radio. Okay. So like I said, like and share. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right, welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show. Special day today. 2 candidates up in the queue here. We're talking with both Ron Gillham, who is the incumbent in District 7, House District 7 down in the peninsula, and the challenger, Justin Ruffridge, as well. A little bit of a debate format going back and forth here. Right before we went to break, we asked a question about priorities. What are your priorities as you go into the legislative session, this next one and the rest of your term? What are going to be the things that you focus on that you believe are important for your constituency and for the state of Alaska? Ron got a chance to answer, but we ran out the clock before we got back to it. So now we're asking the same question of Justin Ruffridge. Justin, what are your priorities going down there? If you end up as the representative, what are you going to be focusing on? What do you think is important, et cetera, et cetera? Now is your time to shine, my friend. It's up to you.
Well, thank you. My opponent stated in his opening remarks that he wanted to represent everybody, and that included people that didn't vote for him. And I have to say that one of my priorities is part of the reason why I chose to run, which is truly to represent everybody, because that is the job. I have a list of about 10 different bills that were passed by the majority of House members, 30 or higher, as well as the majority of the Senate, 18 or higher, that my opponent voted against. And I'm not certain why that existed. In truth, I actually attempted to contact my opponent in last session in order to find out why he voted against one of the bills that I was attempting to lobby for and legislate with, and couldn't get a response. And so for myself, I felt like I wasn't being represented. And so I did obviously some complaining, as men do to their wives, and then heard from her, maybe you should go try to change some of that. So that was a good experience here in this house, talking that back and forth and deciding to run. In the process of running, what I've found is that priorities are very consistent across the board. I've been doing a lot of door to door and a lot of talking with people. And the truth is people have very, very, very similar priorities. The first thing that they want is a fiscal plan. They absolutely want the legislature to be stubborn and to say, we are not going to budge until we have a plan to fund state government in a reasonable fashion going forward. They want a plan. They want to see how this thing works for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. They want to see how it works if oil prices are low, and if oil prices are high, what we choose to do with the money. They want to see a state that saves money. They also want to see a state that prioritizes our education of children. And I think, we hear a lot about fixing education. And our state certainly fares poorly on some testing across the nation. But at the same time, I think one of the biggest ways to do that is to communicate to people who are on the boots on the ground. And that's something I've been doing a lot of, and I think that's a huge priority. How about we bring some teachers in? I think local control of education is a priority. And I think the legislature has a lot of unfunded mandates. That's something that I'm against. My opponent actually had a number of education bills during last session, all of them essentially mandates that were unfunded about what teachers needed to teach, should teach, or how they should teach it. That's not the way to fix education, is by telling people what to do and how to do it. And that's not something I stand for.
All right. Thank you very much, Justin Ruffridge. Again, answering our questions here. We come back now to the next of our questions, and that is the question of caucusing. We, of course, saw what happened. One of the reasons why I think that Ron decided to run and make a push for House was, of course, the big debacle that we had earlier on with the previous representative. A month to organize, fighting it out back and forth, caucusing, trying to make a bipartisan caucus, or do we do a full Republican caucus? You guys are both Republicans. So the question is, and we'll start with Justin again this time, what is your position on caucusing? Will you stick with the Republican majority or minority, as the case may be, or would you go across the aisle and work with a bipartisan coalition that we've seen that's been formed over the last couple sessions? What's your position on caucusing, and should we, stay strong, or should we find some way to bridge and compromise across the aisle? Justin Ruffridge, you get to start here.
Thank you. I know that this is actually a huge place where I get a lot of pushback from my opponent. The truth is that I plan on caucusing with the party of which I belong. And the Republican Party is my party. It's been my party since I was old enough to vote. So been my party for my entire adult life. And I think part of the reason why we struggle so much as Republicans is because we consistently find ways to shoot ourselves in the foot. The truth is we had a Republican majority in the last session, and somehow, some way, found a way to mess that up. And that's been consistently the process by which Republicans do business. And I'm frankly quite over that. I think it's our job as legislators to find ways to work together within our caucus, and regardless of personality conflicts or difficult people, we were sent there to do a job, and our job is to legislate and to build a budget that works. And we need to do that and put aside petty differences in order to work together as Republicans. That being said, I think one of the biggest things that would be important going into this session is like I said before, a stubborn group of people. It doesn't take a lot. It takes a group of people. And I pray that it's Republican people that look at a fiscal plan and say, we must make a fiscal plan. It has to happen. And you bring those people together and say, we will not move on another bill. We will not do another action item until we have a fiscal plan. That fiscal plan needs to include a biannual budget. We need to stop fighting about the budget every year. It's nonsense. It's a waste of time. And we need to have that. We need to have that finished and done. And we need to present that to the people of Alaska so that the people of Alaska have confidence that we are doing our job. We also need to be able to get our session done in 90 days. I think that the best way to do that is to organize quickly, which means, again, putting aside petty differences and getting work done. One of my biggest fears going into this session would be that we have a Republican majority and have this exact same issue that's happened for the last session happen again. My opponent was part of that last session, and in fact was part of kicking out a member of the minority caucus. And I understand there's probably reasons for that, but I wish that I could hear those reasons. I also wish I could find out why they were unable to work together or bring people together and elect a Speaker of the House and put people in charge that would be Republican-led and Republican majority.
All right, I'm going to exercise my moderator priority here, or prerogative, because that was well and good, but I didn't really get a question or didn't get an answer on whether or not you would stick strictly with a Republican, because you're talking about people shooting and shooting themselves and doing it, which I agree with. But the question is, will you stick with a Republican majority or minority, or would you bridge across the aisle and work with a coalition of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans on the other side? What's give me a quick answer here.
Thank you. Yes, I would stick with the Republican majority or minority. It would be my preference that we have a group who are absolutely stubborn on fiscal planning.
All right, Justin Ruffridge's answer, and that brings us over to Ron. Same question, Ron. We've seen what you've done in the past, but I just want your perspective and prerogative, and maybe your answer on the questions about caucusing and coming together, as a group, and whether you would stick with that, or whether you would bridge across the aisle, so to speak, with the bipartisan majority in the House. It's your turn.
Yeah, you watched me in the last couple of sessions. I did not go and join the majority, even though we had a majority of Republicans in the House. Some of them went to the other side and gave the control to the Democrats. We have what's called a rule of 21. 21 people rule, and it doesn't matter if we have 30 Republicans, if 11 of them go to the Democrat side, that's who controls it. So, I gave my word. I will not caucus with the Democrat side. Now, that's not saying that I won't work with them. Ivy Sponholz had the telehealth bill, which was a great bill for Alaska. I was the second person that signed on to that as a co-sponsor, and it did pass. So working together is one thing. Giving control to the majority, the Democrat majority, is a whole different ball game. And like I said, I gave my word. I will not do that, and I don't plan on doing that. And I was accused of choosing to be in a minority. No, I chose to keep my word, and that's what I will do. I will keep my word. And I didn't. The only promise that I made was I would not join a binding caucus, which is what the Democrats had, and I did not do that. So I will say one thing, that if people want to understand kind of where your allegiances are, go look at APOC reports. Mine are all Republicans, and they're all local people. So I said, I'm not going to take the 3 minutes here. I will not join that binding caucus, which has caused issues. And, that is something that needs to go. So I firmly believe we're going to go back with a Republican majority who will work together and, get rid of this binding caucus, and the rule of 21 will be on our side, not the others.
Ron Gillham, thank you so much. We move on over to now our next set of questions, which to me is one of the biggest issues that we're facing in the state and have been facing for quite some time. And that is the question of the PFD. It's been treated as a volleyball, kicked back and forth across the net. I'm actually going to give you a tease for the question, and then we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and repeat it. Because we're up against the break here. The question is the PFD. Where do you stand on the PFD? Full statutory, back pay, POMV, 50-50. 2575. What are your positions on this? We're going to start with Ron Gillham in just a minute when we return, because we are up against the break. I thought I had timed all this out. We're going to have a hard time getting to all our questions, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return with Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge, our debate for District 7. We'll be back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Dukes Show. Radio.
Okay, we are in the break right now. Commercial break is rolling, and quite honestly, I'd already forgotten about what I was going to ask them during the commercial break because, I got the brain like the sponge this morning with very little coffee in me. I want to talk for just a second, though. Let me pull down here on the timer. I do want to talk for just a minute about support and who's supporting whom. That is an issue that I did not have on the list, gentlemen, but I know that there's been a lot of questions about who's being supported by whom and different donations. And of course, there's always the assertion that whoever is funding you is the ones that you'll be beholden to later on. Ron just mentioned, again, his APOC report. I know, Justin, there's been a lot of questions about that, specifically because you've received some support from unions and others. So let's talk for a minute about those who are supporting you. And do you feel like that makes you beholden to those people as we go through? So I'll give you a couple minutes here and you get a shot at that.
Well, thank you for that question, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide some clarity. The truth is that introduction that my opponent gave about representing everybody is very true for me. And I don't have a closed donation tab on my website. If people like what they hear and they want to donate to my campaign, I'm not a person that says, no, you're not welcome here. And I think one of the big reasons why I received some donations from public employees as well as NEA is because of my stance on defined benefits. And I have not made any promises about defined benefits at all. What I think, though, is that there is a solution to solving our retirement question in the state and why we're losing teachers to out of state by solving some of the retirement questions. Right now, teachers that retire here are not allowed to draw Social Security or can't draw Social Security if they've only worked for the school district. And they have the defined contribution, which frankly, in a lot of cases, encourages them to go elsewhere after they've worked a good Alaska job for a little bit of time. You contrast that with teachers of the past under the Tier 1, Tier 2 systems. There are people that have stayed here that consistently, even after retirement, provide great things to our community. Now, I understand that the defined benefit plan did not work from a fiscal perspective. And so I think that there's room to discuss how do we bring it back and how do we make it work? Do we make sure that benefits only start after someone turns 65? Do we ask them to work longer? Is there ways that we can bring that back? I'm asking about starting the conversation because if we don't fix that, we're going to have an issue. And so, yeah, my APOC reflects the fact that I am willing to have those conversations. And I'm not saying no to talking with people from all different walks of life. And I think that's resonated with people.
Ron, same question. Your supporters and how you feel about it, and any other comments on this as we go through. Your turn. Go ahead, Ron. Can you hear me?
Yeah. My APOC report is. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You there?
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. So no, I'm proud of the people on my APOC report. So can you hear me or am I muted?
No, I can hear you. Go ahead.
And Michael, can you hear me? Okay. So anyway, no, I'm proud of the people on my APOC report. They're local people. I have very few from outside. I have one really good friend that donated from South Carolina, him and his wife. But other than that, most of the money I receive is from local people here in the community. It's if you look at APOC reports, not just mine or my opponents, you look at others, and when you see names like Kathy Giesel, Louise Stutes, Jonathan Christ Tompkins, they expect something back. And you can say what you want, but when your APOC report is full of I guess you'd call them the majority, they are expecting to get back into that majority by bringing people into that fold. And I don't have any of those on my APOC report, and like I said, I'm proud of that. So, and there again, I don't have a close button. Anybody can donate to it, but they have seen my stance. They're not going to talk me into joining them, so they don't try and fund me, and I'm good with that. And just real quick on the losing teachers don't quit bad jobs. They quit bad administrations, and that's what's going on. I've done a lot of studying, and that's the issue with teachers leaving. It's not the retirement. It is a bad administration, and that's what's causing teachers to leave.
All right, Ron Gillham, thank you so much. That takes us back to almost rejoining the radio here in just a hot second. Again, special thanks to Satellite West for sponsoring this hour of the program and giving us an opportunity to ask questions. And that ding is for me, not for everybody else, to remind us we're getting ready to rejoin the radio. Please like and share, folks. Like and share, like and follow. Let's get things going on. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program. We're continuing our debate for District 7 candidates. Joining us right now, Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge. We're talking about our next topic, which is the PFD, the Permanent Fund Dividend, and how important that is. To me, probably the number one issue that's been facing the state for the last 7 or 8 years. We've seen the effect on the economy. We've seen what's happened with its effect on the legislature and spending, and how the crisis mode has been I think, abused in many ways. And so we'll start off with Ron on this one and basically ask the question, Ron, what's your position on the PFD? And both the PFD, is it statutory 50-50, 75-25, the back pay, everything else? What is your take on this? The floor is yours.
Well, the dividend is what got me started into politics. And like I said earlier, when my grandkids were losing half of their income to government, that was wrong. The dividend, the permanent fund, belongs to the people of Alaska. That's the way it was set up. We have in the Constitution, it is set up how it is to be paid. And the back pay, the money is there. Very little was spent. It needs to be given to the people. That's who the money belongs to. And this year in particular, it would have helped so many people. But that rule of 21 kept it from happening. If there's any changes to the dividend plan, it should go to the people. Let them decide, not the bureaucrats, not the legislators. It belongs to the people. If they think it should be changed, then put it out to a vote. Let the people decide if they want to change it. The POMV, I think, is wrong. It was put in without their consent, and it should go away. Like I said, I think the people know best, and that's who the money belongs to. And if they decide to change the formula, then put it out to a vote. Let the people vote on it, and that's where I stand. The money belongs to the people. If any changes are made, it should go to a vote of the people.
Let me just quickly follow up, since you have some time left. How about the back pay or owing? I know some people have pushed for that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the money's still there, so pay it back. And it's not like, sure, it's going to come out of the ERA, but it should have never been in the ERA in the first place. It should have been in the people's pocket. So it should be paid back.
All right. Thank you, Ron Gillham. We'll go over to Justin. Same question, Justin, on the PFD. I know you say you've got a plan. You've got some things that you want to talk about, but again, just what's your take on the full statutory PFD, on what should be done with it? Is it POMV? Is it you choose, they choose? Is it the 75-25, the 50-50? What's your take?
Yeah, well, this is a huge priority item. You got it absolutely right. And what I hear from people going out door to door and in other community settings is one simple phrase: follow the law or change the law. In truth, what I think that people have done is they've elected officials whose sole job, it is the job of the legislature. It's one of, I think, only 2 or 3 things we're responsible for, and that's setting a budget, a fiscal plan. If you notice a trend, in my dialogue today, it's that planning. It's needed. It's necessary. I think putting the PFD to the vote of the people is a cop-out. They elected us to do that job. And if we fail at making a budget and a fiscal plan, and then we have to, steal money from the PFD in order to cover up that mistake, that's wrong. And that's why people are so upset. They're upset because legislators haven't done their job. And I think we see that frustration starting to boil over, and people are absolutely ready. I feel like people have been patient. They've just asked for simple, upfront honesty about how are we going to solve some of these issues, and it requires a fiscal plan. So on that note, I'll transition a little bit to talk about we have to make some cuts. I think as a healthcare provider, I have an opportunity as one of would only be 1 or 2 members of the legislature as that's a healthcare individual. I know how much our state is spending on healthcare, and I know there's a lot of ways that other states have actually cut their healthcare budget tremendously by working through some of the issues that insurance companies bring into the state. The state of Ohio cut their budget by almost $240 million in a year by dealing with some of those issues. This is not a quick fix. We've dug ourselves a hole. We're going to need to find people who are willing to dig in, roll up their sleeves, do the hard work, and present a plan to the governor. We have to do it. It's our job. And that's what we're elected to do. And if we were elected to do it and we didn't do it, then we should be unelected. And I think it's interesting, my opponent talks about the vote of the people and how the people are the voice, and we need to, that people know best, I think was his exact words. But I've been hearing, him say over and over again that he has a bill drafted for the legislature to repeal ranked choice voting. Now, I am not a fan of ranked choice voting, but that was a vote of the people, a very small vote and maybe a misinformed vote. But here we have the legislature thinking they're going to override the vote of the people. Bad precedent. I would be against that. If we're going to repeal ranked choice voting, we need to bring that back to the vote of the people. But as far as voting on the PFD, that is the job of the legislature, and we need to get that job done.
Let me have a follow-up then real quick on that, because, there's been a lot of talk about an advisory vote. If there's going to be a change to the permanent fund, just like there was in 1999, it's been suggested that we should have an advisory vote for a change to the PFD. You're saying that's a cop-out if we push to that. Are you saying there should be no advisory vote if we fundamentally change the PFD?
No, there shouldn't be an advisory vote because we haven't put forward a plan for people to advise us on. The truth is the reason that the PFD has been robbed for the last 6 years is because the state failed to write a budget that works. And so until the legislature is willing to do that, what is the people advising on? The people are going to be advising on, hey, do your job. That's the advisory vote that I hear.
But I'm saying if there is a change to the PFD, if there's a proposed change to the PFD formula, the people should not have an advisory vote on that, you're saying?
I think if there's a proposed change, I'd be absolutely fine with an advisory vote, but it needs to be attached to a fiscal plan for how that thing's going to work for the next 20 years.
All right, we're coming down to it. The POMV law was mentioned. I'm going to shrink the timer by a minute, guys, just because we're coming up against the top of the hour here. The POMV law, Justin, you're up first here. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it something that should be repealed? Your thoughts?
And I think you're talking about Senate Bill 26 when you're bringing up POMV law.
Yes.
Senate Bill 26 was unfortunately not clear. I think one of the bigger issues that Senate Bill 26 did not address was a spending cap, what the split of POMV would be. So it essentially just created a whole nother football to be tossed back and forth. So Senate Bill 26 absolutely needs to be repealed. If we're going to make a fiscal plan, and I think at the time it was hailed as this, we're starting on a fiscal plan and that it was progress. It doesn't seem like progress to me. I think we have an obligation to the people of Alaska to present a full plan, not a half plan, a plan that includes what are we going to spend and why are we going to spend it and where are we going to get the money to spend that dollar amount. And you know what? It's a hard question to answer, and that's why we're not getting clear answers. The days of the free lunch are over. The high oil prices that just funded everything for the state, those days are gone. And now we're living in a roller coaster. The truth is our plan needs to probably be the plan that oil companies use in the state, which is how do we fund ourselves with an average price of oil at $45 a barrel? That's a scary conversation, Michael. And I think your listeners are smart enough to know that's a scary conversation. We are going to have massive cuts. We're going to have people that are willing to dig in there and find the places we are overspending. I submit to you that it's healthcare. POMV doesn't fix the problem. POMV, all it does is, again, takes money out of the PFD to solve a problem that the legislature should have solved a long time ago and hasn't. And I submit to you that I can go in and do that work because it's something I am good at.
All right, Ron, same question, POMV. We actually have less than 2 minutes, but I know you're quick on this, so give me your thoughts.
Yeah, SB 26 definitely needs to go away. And there was bills that were put forward to rescind that, and they didn't go anywhere. We're back to that rule of 21. We didn't have the votes to bring it forward, and it died. But there again, it goes back to I will trust the people of the state, and we need to follow the law. SB 26 tried to bypass what was already in the Constitution, and so it does need to be repealed. It needs to go away. We need to go back to the original formula, and pay the PFD that way. As far as a fiscal plan, we had that.
Ron, hold the line, Ron. Folks, we got to go. Right. Sorry, Ron, go ahead and finish up. I'm sorry, we were up against the break. Go ahead.
Oh, I understand. But Ben Carpenter is very smart. He had a plan put together that would fund everything. It left money on the table. We put money into the savings, and there again, the rule of 21 overruled him, and we ended up losing. So they don't want a fiscal plan. I'm sorry. There's just no will to do that. And unfortunately, the dividend is used as a football to stop that. No matter what we do, what we come up with, they'll turn it over to the dividend, and it shuts everything down. So we have to somehow get the dividend off of the table so we can get a fiscal plan, because until that happens, it's not going to happen. The fiscal plan working group, bipartisan. I mean, there was some of the hard left and hard right group. They came up with an idea that will work for everybody, and it got through a side, and they didn't pay any attention to it. So we have a way to go forward. Excuse me. Excuse me. They don't have political will to do it.
All right, let's continue on there. This is, again, one of our bonus rounds in the break. It's been mentioned already, and we're talking about defined benefits. That seems to be the new battle cry for many in the moderate and left category, is that we have to have defined benefits. It's the only way we'll retain teachers. So we're going to start with Ron this time. Ron, your thoughts on reinstating some kind of defined benefits program in the state of Alaska for teachers and first responders, and what the possibilities are for that expanding down the road.
Well, unfortunately, everywhere that they've had defined benefits, it's bankrupted the systems. So a defined contribution works best. Say you have a teacher that works 15 years and they decide something happens. If it's on a defined benefit, and something happens and they have to leave the teaching career, they lose that. So a defined contribution, they can take it with them. They can go wherever they want to go. Same way with the police, fire. They can take that retirement with them. A defined benefit, they can't take it with them unless they spend the full time in that job. And a lot of people change jobs, so they need to be able to take their retirement with them. I've never had a defined benefit. I've always had a defined contribution, and haven't moved a whole lot, but I've been able to take that retirement with me. So I am not for the defined benefit, and I think it's a bad deal. I think a defined contribution is best. And as I said earlier, teachers are not leaving because of their retirement. They are leaving because of bad administration. I've looked at different studies, even NEA, one of their studies, UAA. Teachers are not leaving the system because of finances. They're leaving because of bad administration. That is by NEA, UAA, and other studies that I read.
All right, Ron Gillham, thank you very much. Justin Ruffridge, same question. Going back to defined benefits, it's got its pitfalls. They say it's got its benefits. Your thoughts on defined benefits program for the state and what it would mean in the long run?
Well, I don't know if this is allowed by the moderator, but my opponent had 22 seconds left, and I'd like to ask him a question on his statement that it's not people leaving because of retirement. It's because of bad administration. Does my opponent think that we have a bad administration in the KPBSD?
Well, I'll give you guys questions and for each other here near the end. Okay. Let's do that. Let's save that for the end. But so write it down and we'll come back to it. But
Understood.
your thoughts on defined benefits.
And I mean that's I'll tell you, I don't think we have a bad administration in the KPBSD, and I'm not really certain what he's reading, but I'm talking to teachers, and I actually know personally 7 people who have left the state of Alaska because they were teachers and they understood that their future here did not look well, and that there were multiple places that they could go across the country and teach and have a retirement plan that made better sense for them and their families. That's tough to hear. It just is. And those are facts. We can't steer ourselves away from facts. What I'm saying is that it's absolutely time that we have the conversation about defined benefits. We had it in the last legislative session about firefighters and public safety officers, and that went places because that was seen as we got to keep those people on board, and we got to have the state be attractive to people for public safety. And they weren't wrong. We need to have that same conversation about our teachers as well. And if at the very least we don't solve the defined benefits a conversation in the next couple of years, we certainly need to eliminate the windfall concern with Social Security. Teachers need to be able to pay into that and have that as an option when they retire as well.
All right, gentlemen, as I said, if you have questions, make sure that you write them down. We'll come to a question and answer. I was a little ambitious on my list of questions. We're going to shrink the time down to 2 minutes on each one of them going forward. I do want to take some phone calls, and I want to have a chance for the whole last segment is actually going to be closing statements and questions. So we're going to try and get to that real quick. So I'm going to pick and choose a couple of these policies or issues that I've laid out here, because this is obviously taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, which is fine. But we're going to continue here in just a second. We're going to talk a bit about education funding up next. And again, I'm going to cut, just so that you guys know, I'm going to cut the time down to 2 minutes for responses, because I'd like to get through more of this as we go through. Folks, please like and share the show, like and follow the show page. Make sure that you ring the bell on YouTube, subscribe, do all that stuff. And right now, make sure you share it with your friends. Get more people involved in this conversation. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Time to jump back into it with hour 2. Let's get it done. Thanks for joining us. We're going to continue with Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge in just a second.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find all the links to our social medias and the live stream and more, plus across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is the Michael Duke Show, hour 2. We're in the middle of a debate right now between Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham, both running for House District 7 down on the peninsula. Special thanks to Satellite West for sponsoring the program today and sponsoring the debate. You can find out about them at satellitewest.com for all your communications needs across the state of Alaska. That's where you go, and that's who you talk to. We're just joining again right now, going back to talk with Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham, and we're going to jump into this now, our discussion. We're shortening the questions or the answer period just a little bit here, trying to squeeze some more in. So let's talk about education funding, the number 2 item in the budget. It is the second largest item in the budget. We've spent exponentially ever increasing amounts of education in this state over the last 20 years. We continue to have, we're 48th, we're 49th, we're 50th on math, reading, science. We have a 1 in 4 students just outright fail. They don't even graduate. And those that do graduate are required to take remedial courses to be able to take simple college 100-level math courses, et cetera, et cetera. This is a kind of a crisis, but is the answer just more education funding, or does something need to fundamentally change? We start off here with Justin Ruffridge. His answer, Justin, what say you on this?
Yeah, something does need to change, and one of the things that we've seen as coming forward as a plan, I think would be really helpful, and that is reducing the number of school districts that we have in the state. We have a lot of those right now. I think that as a result, we pay for a lot of administrative costs. But one of the things we have to realize is that our state is huge. It's bigger than a lot of countries, and so. If we're trying to provide this, education program to every single spot on the map throughout this state, it probably is going to cost a lot of money to do so. That being said, I think our education budget is doing well. And I don't see there being much in the way of discussion point on increasing that budget anytime soon. What I would really like to challenge, though, is the fact that the legislature, really, their job is to fund education, not tell people how to teach kids. That needs to be local control. That needs to be up to school boards. And I think that the legislature needs to empower school boards to handle that situation. And then that's up to the local people who they elect to that school board. And that gives us very significant local control over what is happening in our schools and with our schools. And I think that's what I hear from people. They want local control. The last thing that we've really never touched on, and really I feel like is very important, is the role of the parent in the education of children. And unfortunately, we have a parenting crisis in the state. And my opponent says that we need to give money to parents and have them, spend whatever they want on their education. Well, that's assuming that every parent is going to do the right thing by their kids. And unfortunately, we have a crisis in this state on that as well, where parents sometimes don't always make the best choices for their kids and don't have their best interest in mind all the time. And I wish that was the case, but we see that that's not.
Justin Ruffridge, thank you. Ron Gillham, your thoughts on education and the education funding in the state. Again, what you're advocating and what your thoughts are on how we fix the problem right now. I'm sorry, Ron. I'm sorry, Ron. I go ahead and get started, Ron. I had you muted there.
Okay. So my opponent asked a question earlier. I'm going to answer that real quick. The Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, in my opinion, is probably the best district in the state. So I'm very happy with our teachers here. They're great. As far as the funding goes, last year administration got a 19% raise. Our teachers got a 3%. The money's going where it shouldn't be going. So it's not getting to the classrooms. That's what needs to change. The money needs to get to the classrooms, and it's not doing that. There again, it goes back to bad administration. So we need to fix that. And I absolutely agree. We have too many districts, but you got to understand, we start cutting districts, there's going to be people lose their jobs. It's just fact. You can't have, go from 54 to 20 or whatever and keep those people on the books. It's physically, fiscally not responsible. So if we do that, which I agree with, we should cut down some of the districts. We don't need as many as we have. I believe Prince William Sound or Prince of Wales Island, I believe, has 6 districts. That's kind of insane, actually. We have districts that have 100 students. So they have a full administration for 100 students. So we do need to fix that. As far as the money following a child, it's not just, here's the money, go spend it. The parents will have to go through an application, and they will have to prove that they are responsible with that money, and it only goes for educating their child. So it's not just, hand all of the parents the money and, here it is, you do with it what you want willy-nilly. No, that's not the way it works. It is the parents will have to go through an application period, prove that that is for the funding of the child and what schools they're going to go to, and they have to be accepted. So it's I said, there's a lot of paperwork there that they have to go through in order to fund the children as they need.
Ron Gillham answering our question there. Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge joining us as our guests here for this debate portion. Both of you have talked a lot about, throughout the different answers about cuts. The size and scope of government, obviously, you think it needs to be cut back and it's too big. So my question is, where do we cut? You just both laid out some ideas for education, but obviously that's the number 2. Health and social services is number 1. Plus we've got a lot of unfunded positions. There's a whole thing. We could do 2 hours just on the cuts potentially, but I need a quick rundown of some of the proposed cuts that you would think would make sense and have the least harmful effect on the state. So we'll start off this time with Ron. What are, in your thoughts, the best ways to make cuts to the state, the size and scope of state government?
Well, the first thing we need to do is go through every, I can't think of the word. It went brain dead. But find all the efficiencies. If we have an unfunded position, get rid of it. So, they take the money, set it aside in case they might need it later. And there are parts of our government that have, 100, 200 of these positions. Those need to go away. So, if we start doing that, then, it'll drop our budget. But, we have to find the efficiencies in every department. That's the word. But it's in each department, will have set money aside for future possible positions. Those need to go away. And, when I ran my business, I didn't set money aside in case I needed a future guide. I had the money, set it, put it in a savings. And if I needed a guide, then I had the money there. But until we find every efficiency in this state, then, in order to make the cuts, that's what we have to do. We have to go through every department and find the efficiencies. That's the only way to start out.
All right, Ron, thank you so much. We go over to Justin. Efficiencies again, things to find. How do we cut? What are your revenues? Where do we make those changes and cuts? Justin Ruffridge.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not entirely certain I heard any proposed cuts in there, and I thought that was the point of the question. But I think that I've alluded to this already in previous answers, but one of the areas that we absolutely can find dollars that are being spent is in the health and social services budget. And I think, Michael, you mentioned that as well. It's huge. It's huge based off of per capita. It's huge just by, its very nature. It, I think, is one of the largest health and social services budgets per capita of any state in the union. And one of the big reasons why it is that way is a couple of reasons. One, and I think your listeners will appreciate certainly hearing this. There's a lot of organizations, people, entities that make a living off of government, and they upcharge government, and they use government as their cash cow. And insurance is one of the biggest users and abusers of that program. It's going to take a very, very diligent and difficult effort to solve that problem. But our state overspends on healthcare to the hundreds of millions of dollars, and that is 100% savings that could be realized if someone's willing to do the work and knows how to speak the language. I have not heard from one other person yet a proposed upwards of $200 million cut to a budget without significant alteration of services. I think we can do this job in this state incredibly cheaper, and I think we can do it better. But we are going to have people that know how to speak that language, do that work, get in there and solve that problem. And again, I think that is an area that I would excel at.
All right, Justin Ruffridge, we're coming up on the break here. I got time for one more question with a 2-minute answer from each of you. The Constitutional Convention. It's a big question. We're hearing a lot of scary things on the radio. We're hearing a lot of people say we shouldn't do it. And then some people are saying we should do it, that obviously there's no political will to make the things happen that need to happen in the state. So we'll start off with Justin real quick. Your thoughts on the Constitutional Convention, the pros, the cons, and where will you be voting? What will you be supporting in this venue?
Well, first of all, I would really like to encourage your listeners and the listeners later on Facebook to not be afraid. Regardless of what you're hearing from the pro side or the con side, there's nothing to be afraid about with the Constitutional Convention. There's also nothing to be afraid about if a Constitutional Convention doesn't get called. What I will say to you is that should one get called, and I am your legislator and your representative, I will absolutely work diligently to ensure that it is run efficiently, that we have a plan in place for how to elect delegates, and that we don't overspend on having the Constitutional Convention. That being said, I think one of the big problems that I have with the Constitutional Convention is the same thing that we see in the legislature, which is division and unwillingness to work together. My personal opinion on what I think happens should a Constitutional Convention get called is 3 to 4 years of people trying to come up with solutions and wanting to get certain things changed in the Constitution, and then it being brought forward to a vote of the people and probably ending up with almost the exact same Constitution that we had to begin with. That's just my own personal opinion on that. So the question is do we want to spend money and time and go through the energy and mental effort of trying to do that? For me, I'm okay, honestly, with where we're at right now. I'll probably be a no vote. The truth is I could be convinced either way, but I haven't exactly been convinced that the Constitution needs adjusted at the moment, especially given the level of partisanship and division that are occurring within all aspects of Alaskan life. And I worry that we would waste the time and come out with the exact same thing at the end.
All right, Justin Ruffridge, thank you so much. Ron Gillham, your thoughts on the Constitutional Convention, your position on it, the pros and cons, and what you see.
Well, like you in the beginning, I was against it because I was afraid of the rights we may lose. But doing more digging into it and more I talk about it, the more people I talk to, I'm going to put my trust in the people of the state of Alaska, because, as far as the delegates go, you will choose who the delegates are. You will vote for them. So to do the Constitutional Convention, the people of Alaska are going to have the final say. Anything that comes out of the convention would go to a vote of the people. If you don't like it, vote it down. If you do like it, vote it up. My main reason for wanting the Constitutional Convention is our judicial system. The way we choose judges is wrong. People have no say in that. And so maybe with the Constitutional Convention, we can change that, because to get 27 in the House and 14 in the Senate is not going to happen. They cannot come together. There it goes back to that rule of 21. And, there is no political will in Juneau to cut their own power. It's not going to happen. So I am all for putting it into the hands of the people. Let them vote on it. Let them make the decision. I will trust the people in the state of Alaska before I will trust the legislature. They just don't have the political will to cut their own power. And so I will vote yes on this Constitutional Convention, and I hope it passes.
All right, Ron Gillham, our guest, along with Justin Ruffridge. We're debating right now on the state of the state and what needs to come forward. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more in just a moment.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now, continuing with Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham, our guests. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question and talk a little bit about the proposed, if we can't get the cuts, what about proposed revenues? And I know that that's a big sticking point for many people as to whether or not we should have some other form of revenue, whether it's a new tax on the oil companies, whether it's a tax on people, whether it's no user fees or whatever it is. So new proposed revenues in the state of Alaska. Justin, we start with you. What say you about new proposed revenues in the state? What would you propose as a new revenue, or what would you support?
Well, first thing, let me just get that out of the way quickly, is I am not in support of any new taxes to the people of Alaska. There was a great report done by one of the Alaska policy working groups, and it did a number of great analyses on what would happen if you decided to tax income in this state. The truth is because we have such a small number of people here, the tax rate in order to cover the gap in our budget crisis would be astronomical. We would be the highest taxed state in the union if we used income tax to do that. So that conversation honestly needs to go away, and it needs to not come back up again. It's not tenable. The truth is that revenue in this state is resource dependent. We absolutely need to encourage resource development, and we need to encourage it in all aspects, whether that's oil and gas, mining, fishing industry, tourism. That's where a bulk of our revenue comes from, and we really need to own that, and I think Alaskans do. But we need to fight for our ability to manage our lands and we need to fight for our ability to extract our resources. I am a huge proponent of increasing our infrastructure in the resources industry. I think it's time for a pipeline for liquid natural gas production. I think there's an opportunity there for some increased revenue. I also think that we are a state that's poised in a very unique position in the world, and we can leverage that not only for cargo but also for data. We're moving into the data world. I think if we could increase our fiber optic speed and data speed, we have a lot of land and cool temperatures and could be a great place for servers and other types of things in the data world, but that would be for the future.
A quick follow-up question. Do you feel that the PFD cut is a tax on people, a stealth tax or a hidden tax, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. That's 100% what it is.
Okay. Ron Gillham, same question to you. New revenue potentials. What are your thoughts on that? Your take on it?
Well, as my opponent said, I am absolutely against income tax. If we implement an income tax, we will have an exodus from this state. I have heard that over and over and over. And until we find all the efficiencies in every department, I will not vote for any kind of a tax. As was stated, we are a resource state. Open up our resources. Get more oil going through the pipeline. And we were pumping, over 1 million barrels a day, and now we're down to 500,000. I believe at the peak we were over 2 million barrels a day. But we need to fill the pipeline back up. And as far as the LNG pipeline goes, as long as the state is not funding it, I am 100% behind it. It needs to be private industry. Precious metals. Alaska has every precious metal that we use on anything: gold, platinum, copper, silver. We have all that. Open it up. Let's use that. Let's take the revenue we get from that, and it'll help fund our state. With what we have, 300,000 maybe workers in the state, and so we can't tax them enough to cover all of the infrastructure that we have. That is just fact. So we need to diversify. We need to open our resources, and that's where we're going to have to get our funds is from our resources. We're a resource state. Let's get it.
Ron Gillham and Justin Ruffridge, our guest. We're getting ready to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right, back now, the Michael Duke Show in our debate for House District 7. Ron Gillham, Justin Ruffridge, our guests. I'm opening up the phone lines right now, 907-433-3150. We're going to have time for probably one or two calls, 907-433-3150. Remember, you will be polite or you will get the axe. So that's going to be the first thing. Before we jump into the phone calls, though, I have one final question, the Charter of Changes. I'm hoping both of you are familiar with the Charter of Changes. Charter of Changes include 4 changes: changing the players, changing the venue being moving the legislative session to the road system, changing the rules, meaning no binding caucus, conflict of interest applies to the legislature like it does to everyone else, and the Open Meetings Act applies to everyone else. And then the fourth one is changing the funding. So I want to get your take on if you support the Charter of Changes or not. We're going to do 2 minutes or less so we can get to some phone calls. We'll start with Ron Gillham. Ron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I told you before, I agree with it. The one thing we got to be careful of is changing the players. We can't just change out players because they're there. There are some good people in Juneau, and we can't change them out and go backwards. So we're going to have to be real careful and choose who gets replaced. Louis, our speaker needs to be replaced. There is a lot of the people in the majority need to be replaced. So we have to be careful with that. As far as we don't need to move the Capitol. We need to move the legislative sessions into Anchorage or someplace on the road system where people have access to us. And as an example, when the budget came up last year, we were inundated with special interest emails coming to our door, wanting us to not concur with the budget. But the money was there for the budget, and we had a bonus, and we were going to pay the full dividend, lawful dividend for the first time in 7 years. But we were inundated with emails, phone calls, and people coming to the door to say, don't concur. So that, we need to move the legislative session onto the road system. Trying to think what the rest of the charter changes are.
Changing
the main ones.
Changing the rules and binding caucus and so on.
Okay, the binding caucus needs to go away. No other state has it. As a matter of fact, some of the other legislators that were spoken to in other states said, well, they would go to jail for that if they did that. So that binding caucus needs to go away. And, as far as Open Meetings Act, when you're doing things behind closed doors in the Senate, even one of the finance president actually barred the door, put a broomstick in the door so nobody could get in or out. So that we need to have the Open Meetings Act. We need to have access to our representatives.
All right. Same to you, Justin Ruffridge. Your thoughts on the Charter of Changes? What's your take on it?
Well, actually, Michael, I'm really excited to hear about this Charter of Changes. I'm not familiar with that. And it's really interesting. I feel like I have directed a lot of conversation towards the Charter of Changes in my personal life for a number of years. I've been shocked that as a city council person, I am absolutely bound to the Open Meetings Act, and was shocked that that did not apply to the legislature. I was extremely frustrated for the last couple of years as a constituent, attempting to find out what's happening or why it's happening, and feeling like there was a lot of information I just didn't get to see or hear. I also share the frustration of many people in Alaska that the legislative session should be closer to the road system and be more accessible. And frankly, there isn't anything in the charter that you've mentioned thus far, Michael, that I would actively campaign against or fight against. I think that binding caucuses are not efficient and really put people in a bad situation. So I'm not in favor of those either. And I think the Charter of Changes. I mean, I'm running. And I'm not the incumbent, so I guess I'm okay with changing the players as well. And I think actually I think our government was set up to have the players change on a regular basis because fresh faces and fresh ideas are always a good thing in a democracy. We are not designed to march forward in an ever steady direction. It's supposed to be hard to change things. Heard a lot today about there's no political will to do things. Well, I'm okay with things moving slowly sometimes, but we need to have a clear direction and a clear plan.
All right, Justin Ruffridge, thank you so much. Let's go over to the phones, and we'll take a call here for a question for both candidates, and we'll give them a chance to respond to that. We'll start off over here. I need to know who you are and where you're calling from, and you can ask your question. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Michael. This is Carlene in Kodiak.
Good morning, Carlene.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm curious about bills that were introduced and passed by private citizen Justin Ruffridge, and then why did Ron Gillham vote against them? Very quickly.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. The bills passed, the bills written and passed by Justin Ruffridge. Is that what you're asking about, Carlene?
Yes. What were they?
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call, Carlene. Justin, you want to respond to that? I know that you helped craft some bills and want to talk about that. Give us a shot at it and tell us what it was about.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlene, for the question. So in the last legislative session, there were two bills that I was working on. House Bill 145, which was regarding the capacity of pharmacy workers, so pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and interns and what their abilities were when it came to patient services and independently providing some of those services, things like emergency medications like EpiPens and Narcan, vaccinations, as well as limited diagnostics, things that have a CLIA wave test, so flu, strep, and COVID testing. Those were some things, as well as opening up the ability for pharmacy interns to have a little more capacity to practice in this state, and increased our ability of pharmacy technicians, particularly those with national certification, to be able to perform certain tasks in our state. House Bill 306 was an extension bill, was extending the Board of Pharmacy and its ability to regulate and license pharmacists, interns, and technicians in the state. This is something that happens every few years. You have to go through an audit. As the chairman of the Board of Pharmacy, it was my responsibility to perform the audit and then bring forward a piece of legislation to extend the board to ensure that the practice of pharmacy was done safely and efficiently in our state. And then House Bill 240 was one that I had worked on in the previous legislative session. This was our first crack at trying to deal with some of these insurance issues that we face in our state. Actually working on a draft bill that's going to potentially add on to that, but in the upcoming session. But House Bill 240 was working against some of the practices of insurance companies that are egregious.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Another call here to see what folks have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? What's your question?
Randy in Fairbanks.
Randy.
And my question is, would you ever consider modifying the Public Employment Relations Act, which was passed by the Alaska legislature in 1972 and which brought about collective bargaining for government workers? Would you ever consider modifying it so that a municipality that is under the Public Employment Relations Act could get out of it if the city council voted that way? Because right now, once they're in it, they're stuck.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate your call. We'll start off with Ron this time. Para, the Public Employees Relation Act, would you give them an opportunity to change out, or give them an opportunity to change it? I've got a minute, 30 seconds on the clock. What do you say, Ron?
Yeah, I would agree with that. If they don't want to be in on it, they should be able to step out. But that is a municipality question. It's not up to the state, but they're the ones that make that decision. So, but yeah, I would say, yeah, they should be able to have that choice. We have state government, we have local government, we have federal government. So one doesn't overrule the other. And, so if a municipality wants to get out of collective bargaining, they should be able to.
Okay. Justin Ruffridge, same question to you. Para, should municipalities be able to leave? Should they be able to decide on how their bargaining occurs? What do you say?
Yeah, I actually, having been involved in municipal government for quite some time, am unfamiliar as to why a municipality would want to do that. It seems like collective bargaining, in my experience at the municipal level, is something that occurs withoat a lot of issue or trouble. So certainly would appreciate the caller maybe giving some background. That he's welcome to email me, ruffridgeak@gmail.com, and discuss that further. I'd like to know some of the background behind that. That being said, I'm not particularly beholden to that act. Certainly would be happy to look at that and address some of the concerns and issues that are presenting themselves somewhere. It sounds like the caller had some sort of experience with it. That being said, I think municipalities and having experience in a municipality is incredibly important. And I'm hearing my opponent say that's not really a state issue. Well, as the representative for two municipalities in District 7, Kenai and Soldotna, I think it's very much our issue. It's our responsibility to have good relationships and understand well how municipalities function, what their issues are, and what us as representatives can do to help municipalities, do their jobs better. And I think that's a big function of a representative.
Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham are our guests. We're continuing. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have some quick questions from each candidate and then final closing thoughts. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to continue in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back with more right after this.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the commercial break right now. I've got one more line on hold, so we're going to ask one more question here from the callers, and we'll see what they have to say. Good morning, caller. Who's this? Where are you calling from? What's your question?
Yeah, this is Ray from North Pole.
Okay, Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, Ron Gillham, I hope in your race you beat the pants off of your opponent.
Is there a question in that? Is there a question in that, Ray?
No, I just want him to know I'm glad he's got the ear of the people.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. If anybody from the chat room wants to call in at 907-433-3150, we'll have time for one quick question and answer from the candidates on either one of these issues. I would love to hear what you have to say. Again, 907-433-3150. We almost got through everything that was on my list here for questions. Let me see. Did I get, yep, we kind of covered that. All right. So I guess the last question that I will ask is about medical freedom. I know there's been a lot of contentiousness since COVID struck. There's been talk about people, whether or not they should have a vaccine mandate, whether or not they should be allowed to take alternative treatments like hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. And so I want to get both takes on this. We'll start with Justin and get his take on this. We don't have a lot of time. We got about a minute and a half for each of you to answer on this. So Justin, we'll start with you. Your take on medical freedom and alternative medicine potentials and everything else here. Your shot.
Yeah, well, this is certainly an area that my opponent loves to, spread some information about me that is absolutely incorrect. The day that vaccine mandates came out in our country as a healthcare provider, especially when Joe Biden looked into the screen and said, this is a disease of the unvaccinated, was a bad day. It made my job incredibly difficult as a person that tries to provide unbiased and clear information to people, which I felt like my staff and I did at an extremely high level during COVID. We were consistent in our messaging about vaccines being available, but not required. We dealt with many, many people who were afraid, both of COVID and of vaccines, and tried to provide even tempered, clear direction and understanding to people so they could make an informed decision. And I think that's all that can be asked, is informed decisions. As far as alternative treatments go, one of the biggest things that was an inhibitory factor in COVID was how political things got. I had multiple members of the legislature show up to Board of Pharmacy meetings demanding one way or another that the Board of Pharmacy tell people what to do. My opponent actually brought forward a bill trying to mandate what pharmacists can and cannot dispense. Healthcare should not be political. People should be able to go to their doctor, get a prescription, fill the prescription, and that's absolutely what I stand for. Anything that says otherwise is an out and out lie, and I'm actually getting kind of tired of it.
Okay, Ron Gillham, your thoughts on medical freedom, alternative solutions, anything else, your thoughts on that?
Well, it should be our choice. And, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. That's up to you. My opponent voted 3 different times to keep the people in Soldotna in mask. It is on record. He voted twice to extend the emergency mandate, which kept businesses shut down. And, there again, going back to my constituents, I had multiple people get in touch with me saying they wanted to try ivermectin and hydrochloroquine that was available. My opponent refused to give that. And, Alaska is a right to try state. And that should be our choice of anything we want to try. Ivermectin was shown that it was working against this virus. But when they would go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist would not give it to them, where's our right to try? I mean, that's going against our constitutional rights of a right to try state. So, I am for medical freedom. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. Wear a mask. If you want to try hydrochloroquine and ivermectin, that should be your choice. It shouldn't be up to and if the pharmacist in his heart cannot give it, then he should tell people, I can't do it. But if you go to this other pharmacy, they can maybe help you.
All right, Ron Gillham, thank you. We are coming back to the break. We're going to give a chance. Both candidates are going to get a chance for closing arguments, which could include rebuttals on anything that was said throughout the last 2 hours or so here on the program. Do me a favor, folks. If you would, please, would you like and share this video, like and follow the show page? Again, special thanks to Satellite West for helping to sponsor the program today. Man, so many dings going on right now. We're about ready to rejoin the radio, and we're going to kick this things off. One final segment ahead, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go. All right, one final segment here on the program this morning, our special debate edition for House District 7. We are joined this morning by both Justin Ruffridge and Ron Gillham, who are both running for the seat. Ron is the incumbent. Justin is the challenger. This is the opportunity. I'm going to give both of you a chance to ask a question of the other candidate from anything that was discussed previously, and we'll get a minute 30 seconds for the response before we go into closing arguments. Try and keep your questions concise because we only have about 11 minutes here before we got to go for the day. So we'll start off with Ron this go around. Ron, a question for Justin that maybe something I didn't ask or something that you heard during this interview or debate, and we'll give Justin a minute 30 to respond.
All right. Well, actually, I only want to ask one question, and he has been asked this numerous times, but I'm asking it a little bit different way. I would like to know, and the people would like to know, what you found appropriate about the drag queen show. What part of that show did you find appropriate?
And you're discussing the drag queen show that took place in the Soldotna Park that raised a bunch of ire down there in the Kenai. Okay, yes, exactly. So we'll go to Justin. Justin, your thoughts on this and your response.
Well, so of all the issues that we've discussed here today, budget policy, fiscal plan, PFD, education, drag queen show was the question. This is a political stunt. First of all, I can't speak to the drag queen show because I wasn't at the drag queen show. So potentially my opponent could fill me in on what exactly he's asking. But I think what you're referencing is the 3-second clip of the drag queen show that found its way to social media and went widely around. And I've been very clear from day one that I hear people, and people are not happy about what happened in the park. And as a municipal officer and a city council member, the first thing you do is start going to work on that issue. And you start drafting policy, which is currently happening, to address what can happen into the park, why it happens, who's in charge of it. And frankly, Mr. Gillham, your calls to fire our city manager in Soldotna were unfounded, ridiculous, and have no idea how municipal government works. First of all, our city manager doesn't approve or disapprove of things that happen in the park, nor does the city council. And if you think we can snap our fingers and make a change on what happens in a park, I mean, the First Amendment would have something to say about that, I think. And so you have to be diligent in your approach to how you address these issues. So frankly, I think your question was a little unfounded, but happy to answer it and certainly happy to talk to you any other time besides this.
All right. So now, Justin, your turn for a question to Ron Gillham, and we'll give him a minute, 30 seconds to answer before we go into closing comments.
Yeah, I asked it earlier, and I think you tried to answer it, but all you said was that teachers in our district are the best teachers. You've said over and over and over again here and in other places that that people are leaving our state because of bad administration. Teachers are leaving our school district because of bad administration. I would like an answer from you. Is the administration, because people are leaving the KPBSD, teachers are leaving the Kenai Peninsula School District, is it because our administration in the school district is, as you say, bad?
All right, Ron, your chance to respond to that. Go ahead.
No, I don't feel that the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District administration is bad, but teachers leaving is personal choice. And, it goes back to that defined benefit. Alaska is the only state that has that defined benefit. So if teachers are leaving, going to other states, they're going to a defined contribution state. There again, when the administration gets a 19% raise and teachers only get 3%, that's a little bit lopsided. Alaska teachers are the 10th highest paid in the nation. And so I can't see where teachers are leaving because of funding. But, they have their own personal reasons for leaving, and it's a personal choice. But, like I said, I think both of my kids are products of the Kenai Peninsula School District. They both are doing great. I know a lot of people here that work locally that, are graduates from Soldotna, Kenai, Nikiski. But, excuse me. No, I feel that probably Kenai Peninsula Borough School District is probably the best district in the state. And I've heard this from many other people. So it's not just my personal feelings. It is others saying the same thing.
All right, Ron Gillham, thank you so much. So let's move on now to closing comments here. We're going to have about 3 minutes for each of the closing comments. And we'll start off, as we did at the very beginning, with Justin, and then we'll finish up with Ron. Justin, your closing thoughts, comments, pitches, whatever you need to do. This is your time to shine here in that regard.
Well, thank you, Michael. And first of all, want to thank you again for the opportunity to come on this program. I'm going to start here about things that were said close to the end of the program and work my way backwards. My opponent brought up mask mandates, and I understand that my opponent has spent a lot of time in Juneau, being the highest per diem taker of any of the state legislators. Maybe he wasn't quite aware of what was happening in the town of Kenai and Soldotna. Soldotna has never had a mask mandate. A citywide mask mandate was introduced by 2 city council members and was voted down actually even before it made it to the agenda. I think what he's referencing about me voting 3 times for is limited masking inside city buildings during the Delta wave, because we were having multiple city employees go out ill, and we wanted to keep services open for our community. So that was police, that was the library, and that was City Hall. And so it was a limited ask for masking that went away as soon as we had less people that were more likely to close down our city services. Businesses shut down. We didn't have any businesses shut down. There was no mandate to shut down businesses in Kenai or Soldotna. In fact, I can share widely on my Facebook an email that I sent to our borough mayor about keeping businesses open. In fact, I spent a huge amount of my energy and effort volunteering to help businesses stay open. And I can give you list after list of people that I wrote protocols for and helped them stay open. One of the questions that I had for my opponent, and maybe he can address in his closing comments, is on his plan for education. What happens if kids don't get accepted into the plan when they fill out the paperwork? Where does the money go then? And you mentioned a lot that you trust in the people. And again, I think that your record shows that maybe you don't necessarily trust in the people. You have plans to repeal a vote of the people in the legislature. I think that that is wrong. If people vote on it, then we need to respect that vote or bring it back for a vote. And I want to be very clear on that. Also, it seems that in the chat going on Facebook, Maybe Mrs. Gillham has some things to say about the shot clinic that I operated down at the Y in Soldotna. That was not a volunteer operation. There was a lot of volunteering that I did during COVID, but that certainly wasn't one. That was a grant-funded shot clinic where I hired nurses and people to administer shots to people that wanted them. And so nurses don't work for free. So we paid nurses to do that, and then we rented space to do it. All that being said, fiscal planning is absolutely my priority. It's one of the reasons that I'm running. We need to have a plan in the state. We need to have a plan for my kids, for my grandkids, and we absolutely need to give people a reason to stay in Alaska. And without a clear plan from our state officials and our state government and willingness to go get the job done, we won't have it. And please vote for me November 8th, because that is who I am and what I stand for, is getting work done. And I think you can see my record states that.
Thank you, Justin Ruffridge. Ron Gillham, 3 minutes, closing thoughts.
Well, we can't keep changing out players every 2 years. We can't build the relationships that we need to. After 2 years, I'm starting to get a little bit of a seniority, so I will get better chairmanships, and that's the way you get things done. And if you go back down, if we send a new person down, he's going to be a freshman. He's not going to get the chairmanship, maybe, but building those relationships takes time. So, we need to have people who will stick to their word, which I have. And, as far as my records go, every bill that I have put forward has came from constituents who got in touch with me and said, can you do this? Can you do this? And so it's not my doings. It is my constituents that are asking for that. And, I put a bill forward to name a day after Hobo Jim, and one of my opponent's donors kept it in his drawer, and it never came out and it died. So, we need people who can actually work together, and that for the good of Alaska, not for their own personal gain. I'm not saying he's doing that, but this is it's been done before. So he asked a question, and I couldn't remember what it was, but I have stuck to my word. I told you I would not join a binding caucus. I did not. And, I will work for the good of Alaska, for all Alaskans, and, especially for our kids. So, on November 8th, I would ask for your vote, send me back down, and I will continue to work for all Alaskans. This is not for me. I was enjoying what I was doing, running heavy equipment. So, on November 8th, I would appreciate your vote. Send me back to Juneau. Send me back to my minority caucus. Make us a majority caucus. We will get things done for you. We have a plan going forward, but it's going to take people to stick together to do that. And I think I am the one to go back to continue going forward as far as a fiscal responsibility. We have people that have that. And, like I said, I feel that I am the one that needs to go down to keep this going forward. So on November 8th, I would appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Folks, out of time. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right. Here's what I'm going to do. 2 minutes. Final bite at the apple. Any other closing comments? Any other thoughts? Anything else? 2 minutes apiece. I usually give candidates in the final break of the show. I usually give them the last 2 minutes for roundup for anything we didn't cover, anything else that happened or didn't happen. And so we'll start again this time with Ron, and we'll finish up with Justin, and we'll get ready to sign off. So Ron, your thoughts, anything else that we missed, anything that you didn't get to, just anything. 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, Michael. I know it's kind of basically short notice, but I appreciate my opponent being here. But I think we covered, pretty much everything that's important. And I know we cover a lot that's important to me. So I don't really have a whole lot more to say. I would just ask that I'm appreciative of the questions that are asked on Facebook. And, anyway, I hope everybody has a good day. And like I said, I appreciate you doing this, Michael. And that's
all right.
probably about it.
That's probably about it. Where do they find you, Ron? What's your website? How do folks find out more about you?
Gillham for House. It's Gillham 4 house at gillham4house.com. They can call me at area code 907-953-6525, or they can send me an email at gillham4house@yahoo.com, and it's Gillham FOR house@yahoo.com.
House.com. We'll post that link up into the chat room right now. Go check it out there. Now we go over to Justin. I'll reset the timer here. Justin, 2 minutes. Any thoughts, whatever it is, websites, meet and greets, the whole deal. Hit me with it.
Yeah, and I do want to say thank you again to you, Michael. And I certainly really enjoy the opportunity to debate and to get some of these issues aired out. The truth is I've spent a lot of time and energy in the last 6 months talking to people. And what I hear from people is pretty simple. They are looking for someone who is responsive, who answers their phone calls and emails. They're looking for someone who can take a professional approach to legislation, to issues that are facing our state, to really dig in and find solutions to problems, to real problems. And really, they're looking for somebody who is reasonable and who takes a reasonable approach and a long-term approach to things, not the snap reaction judgment that we get so many times from people that serve in the legislature. We have to have a plan for the state, a plan that lasts 10, 15, 20 years and longer. And we've really missed that for the last few years. So I absolutely know that I am the right choice to make in this election. Appreciate your vote November 8th. If you would like to know more about me, I have a lot of information on my website. Thank you to my brother who helped teach me how to put websites together. That has come in handy big time. I get to, get my coding skills on making my website, but I've put a lot of effort into it. It is at Vote Ruffridge, which is RUFFRIDGE.com. You can call me at 907-953-3727 or email me at ruffridgeak@gmail.com. I love to talk to people. I think it's the important part of this job and hope to talk to you.
All right, Ron Gillham, Justin Ruffridge, I want to say thank you to both of you for coming on the program, for being civil and having, good answers and spending the 2 hours with me here. I think this is important. To me, it is the most, I just remembered what the question was that I was going to ask in the first debate, and this is a good time to ask it real quick. And this is kind of a yes or no thing, because I think one of you intimated that that's part of the job, is being able to be out there in the public eye, to be able to answer questions. And so I would ask you that if either one of you were elected, would each of you agree to come on the program once a month and spend 45 minutes with me talking about whatever the issue of the day is, talking about whatever the hot button thing is or the latest piece of legislation? Would you agree to coming on the program every month, 3 weeks, somewhere in there, to discuss with the people of the Kenai who are listening on the radio and on Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else what's going on? Ron, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been on your show before, and I'll come on once a week if I need to. So,
okay,
and I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, and Justin, your thoughts? I mean, coming back on, talking to people, having your feet held to the fire, so to speak, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's the job. Happy to, and actually, should I be elected, that you would be, I think, the second radio program that I would make that commitment to. So happy to do it. I think it's very important.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on board. Again, the civility is great. And I appreciate you being part of this. Again, I haven't done a debate in probably 10 or 12 years on the air, so this was kind of a interesting. It's always quiet because I just got to ask the questions and be quiet. I can't comment, so it's always an exciting time for me to try and hold my mouth when I'm doing things. But it was good. I think it's good information, and this video will be up and available for everybody to watch later on Facebook and on YouTube. So you guys, and the podcast, of course, which will go up here in the next 5 minutes. Folks get a chance to hear it, and but my thanks to both of you for coming on board and joining us today and being part of the program and the experience. Thank you, guys.
For the record, you're a great moderator. You should do it more.
It's too stressful.
You've done a great job.
All right. Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate you guys coming on board with us this morning. Folks, we are out of time. Yeah, baby. That's it for today. The Michael Duke Show continues. If you want to help support the show, become a member of the Common Sense Corps. Go to patreon.com/Michael Duke Show. You can help support the show for as little as a cup of coffee a month. You'll get access to our private Facebook page. You get access to swag, coffee mugs, T-shirts, the whole schmear, and all that. We appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you for being part of it today. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. On the program with us tomorrow is going to be David Nelson and Mia Costello, both running for office there. Appreciate you being part of it. I'm glad we got through this today. Seemed to work out okay. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.